The emergency lights flashed across the building like lightning trapped inside thick concrete walls. Voices filled the air. Panic screams mixed with the echo of metal doors slamming shut and guards shouting orders they couldn't keep straight. On the cold floor of the jail, King Harris lay barely moving, his breath shallow and uneven as chaos spread around him like wildfire. Yet in one specific corner everything froze. A strange silence pushed through the noise as if the world held its breath. In that moment a phone began to ring. T answered, expecting a quick update about his son, maybe something routine. But the voice he heard destroyed that small bit of calm instantly. He's been attacked. His breathing isn't right. That one sentence spun T.I.'s entire world out of control. It felt like his heart dropped straight out of his body. Tiny, who had been sitting nearby, froze as the news spread through the family like a shockwave. Suddenly every second felt too long. T rushed out of the house, jumped into his car, and sped through the streets, honking at every slow driver in front of him. It felt like the whole city should have cleared a path without being asked. His hands trembled on the steering wheel, his chest tight as fear clawed at him. Tiny held onto the dashboard beside him, whispering desperate prayers under her breath. Lord, please, please don't take my child. Not today. Not like this. Memories he'd forgotten came rushing back. King laughing as a little boy, his tiny hands gripping the handlebars of his bike when he finally rode without help, the nervous way he once asked for advice about school. All those moments flashed in T.I.'s mind like someone flipping through an old family album at a cruel speed. When they reached the hospital, the scene was a storm of panic. Nurses ran in every direction. Machines beeped rapidly. Doctors moved with urgency, crowding around a bed filled with wires, tubes, and blinking monitors that looked more like weapons than tools for healing. Reporters were already gathering outside. Cameras clicked non-stop. People yelled out questions, but T didn't hear any of it. His entire focus narrowed to the pale, still figure of his son. Tiny knelt beside King's bed and held his limp hand with both of hers, almost as if she could bring him back just by refusing to let go. T sank into a chair, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Come on, son, stay with me. I'm right here." Meanwhile, the outside world exploded with commentary. Social media lit up within minutes. Hashtags trended. People argued about what might have happened. Some said King had made dangerous choices. Others insisted he was simply caught in a system too big to escape. Old videos resurfaced of T lecturing King. Moments from interviews, concerts, and family clips were suddenly being dissected again. Inside the hospital room, the doctors finally returned with early updates, and they were heartbreaking. His vital signs are unstable. He's in critical condition. We can't promise he will wake up. Tiny covered her face, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. T refused to leave the room, pacing back and forth like a trapped animal. Every time a monitor beeped differently, his heart pounded harder. "I'm not walking out," he muttered. "Not without my boy. He's coming back, he has to." Outside, the family arrived in waves of panic. Zanique rushed in crying, barely able to stand upright. T.I.'s older sons argued with security, shouting to be let inside. Tiny's mother fainted when she learned the truth. Emotions clashed everywhere. Fear, anger, confusion, all boiling over at once. No one had answers. No one knew who was responsible. And no one could fix the terror settling over everyone. Eventually, T broke down. He yelled at the security officers for failing to protect his son, accusing them of negligence and incompetence. In his frustration, he punched a wall so hard the skin on his knuckles split open. Tiny tried to calm him, but even she was drowning in grief, her tears spilling non-stop. "How did this happen?" T cried out. "How did my child end up like this? Why wasn't he safe?" Nobody could respond. The silence was suffocating. Then, just when the room felt like it was sinking, nurses suddenly rushed forward. Machines began beeping wildly. The doctor was called urgently. For a moment, everyone froze again. King's fingers twitched, then twitched again, and hope crept back into the room like a fragile spark refusing to die. A faint movement passed through King's body, so small that at first no one was sure it had really happened. Then the heart monitor jumped, rising just enough to pull every eye toward the screen. The room fell into complete silence. T dropped into the nearest chair as tears streamed down his face without control. his entire body shaking from relief. Tiny wrapped both hands around King's fingers, whispering his name again and again, her voice trembling. She could feel a little warmth returning to his skin, a sign that life was finding its way back into him. Slowly, King's eyelids fluttered open. His gaze shifted around the room, unfocused, confused, almost frightened. Then in a weak whisper he called out, "Pop!" That single word broke T completely. He rushed forward, careful not to squeeze too tightly, but desperate to hold his son. King tried to apologize, barely able to speak. "I should have listened," he murmured. T touched his forehead and whispered, "You're getting another chance. Don't ever take it for granted." As relief washed over the family, King began explaining what had happened. His voice shook, but he pushed through the pain. The attack wasn't random. It was planned. He had gotten into a conflict with someone influential inside the jail, someone with connections and power. The moment he described the attacker circling him, T.I.'s fists tightened at his sides. Rage crawled through him. His son had almost died because of a deliberate setup. Inside the jail, panic spread quickly. Officials launched an investigation. Lawyers were notified. People began questioning whether guards had ignored warning signs or even helped the situation escalate. Online debates erupted immediately. Some people blamed the system for failing again. Others wondered if King had been careless. But T didn't care what anyone on the internet had to say. His priority was protecting his son from every direction, from outsiders, from the media, from the chaos that had already taken enough. Later, when the room emptied for a moment, King broke down quietly. Tears slipped down his cheeks, and he admitted to Tiny that he wanted to change. He didn't want to keep ending up in trouble or danger. Tiny held him closely, promising to watch over him and keep him safe, no matter how hard things got. It was a rare, honest moment from a young man who usually hid behind toughness and pride. Soon after, T stepped outside the hospital to give a short statement. His face looked exhausted, his voice rough as he thanked people for their prayers. He admitted the family was far from perfect, but he said they would fight endlessly to protect their child. "God gave us our son back today," he said, and the words felt heavy, filled with relief but also fear of how close they came to losing him. The media reacted instantly. Cameras flashed. Reporters typed frantically. Social platforms blew up with theories, videos, screenshots, and timelines. But while the world watched from behind screens, something unsettling happened in real life. Hospital security noticed a strange man wandering near King's room. His behavior set off alarms. When T was told, he went straight into defensive mode. He demanded extra security, surveillance, and full control over who came near his son. The idea that someone might be trying to get close to King again made T physically sick. He refused to leave the hospital at all, pacing the hallways, watching everyone who passed by, determined to stop any threat before it reached his child. As the day stretched on, King regained some strength. He talked in short sentences, smiled weakly, and even joked about the terrible hospital food. Tiny and T remained right beside him, refusing to step away. Every time King fell asleep, they held his hands, whispering comforting words to remind him he was safe. Even with the world obsessing over the story and fans guessing what might happen next, one simple truth overpowered the noise. King survived something that should have taken his life. And that alone made T break down in tears again. This time out of thankfulness instead of fear. But the calm didn't last. Late that night, security cameras caught a blurry figure standing near the hospital entrance. Someone who had no reason to be there. Someone watching too closely. T saw the footage and his entire body tensed. His heartbeat quickened. His instincts screamed that danger wasn't gone, it was waiting. King's survival had shocked everyone. But now it was clear the nightmare wasn't finished. A new threat was unfolding, bigger and darker than before. And the Harris family was stepping straight into another storm. A storm that would test their loyalty, their strength, and their ability to protect one another like never before.